Planning a program, in my opinion, there are 6 steps to that. I want to look at these steps in more detail. Step 1, determine the participant needs. Step 2, define the purpose. Step 3, state the goals. Step 4, plan program content. Step 5, plan methods of facilitation. And step 6, conduct evaluations. Okay. Step 1, determine participant needs. Who is the program designed for? What is their age, gender, prior experience and attitudes? And what is their fitness or functional level? Anyone can teach a class that doesn't require modification. The instructor who sees a participant as a person who is more important than the activity is a real teacher. Individualizing an exercise program for a person with special needs or requirement is extremely challenging, even for the most seasoned professional. But older people's attitude to exercising is important also. A lot of them have had bad experiences in the past, and they view exercise in a very negative way, and believe that they'll be hurt by doing the exercises. It is very important to find out what their fitness level is, what their activity level is, and we will discuss this all further. Step 2, defining the purpose. What, in general terms, is the purpose of the program? What impact do you hope it will have? Defining the purpose for an exercise program sets out general intentions. Example, to provide a progressive muscle strengthening program twice a week for ambulatory older adults. Impact, for example, to reduce the risk of falling by strengthening leg muscles, to be able to rise up from a chair, floor more easily. Step 3, state goals. Goals are achievable changes which can be used to evaluate program success. Involve the participant and the whole group, where possible, in stating the goals. Example of a statement of goals: to provide instruction on resistant bands so that they can be used safely at home, say, or to tone up and lose inches in 6 weeks. Involving the participant increases compliance and gives a sense of purpose to the class. Step 4, plan the course content. Follow the principles of training to include progression and intensity. Include elements of health-related components that we discussed, and the structure of the class is important as well. It should be a warm-up, a warm-down, etc. Based on the preceding steps in program design, make sure that you have planned for progressing the activity throughout the course, and procedures are in place for monitoring intensity. Have as many elements of health-related components as possible in the session. This can be achieved even if the session is chair-bound. The format of the class is important also. Try and include some element of social interaction, even if that is a cup of tea at the end and a chat later. In the next session, we will be talking a little bit more about the social well-being. Step 5, plan methods of facilitation. Take time to pre-plan your approach. Take into account different learning styles and use effective feedback techniques. So take time to pre-plan your approach. Long before you ever step into that exercise class, take the time out to think about how you're going to approach the session. This includes using different methods of communication, taking into account that there will be people in your class who have some disabilities. So make sure to get genuine feedback as to how the class is going. That way you will ensure success both for you and for the participant. Step 6, conduct evaluations. Review and improve the program if necessary. Use goals set earlier to determine the relative success of the program. Include participants' emerging needs in renewed program design. Keep renewing and improving if necessary. Don't be afraid to change something that is not working. Older adults are very loyal customers and they won't be running to the next best thing or the new kid on the block. In fact, they're the complete opposite of this. They love to stick with something till they get it right. Again, do keep in mind that their needs change, and therefore you as an instructor need to keep checking and renewing your goals to ensure their success. Another question coming up. There are a number of ways to determine the needs of a group of older people. Can you name 3 feasible methods? How did you do? Did you say a physical activity readiness questionnaire or a PowerQ? Did you do an activity level check? Right, finding out their previous history? Did you say functional fitness tests relative to older people? We will go in a little bit more detail now regarding these tests. So we're looking at screening. A PowerQ revised actually, so you might see it as a PowerQ-R. That is a physical activity readiness questionnaire. And this type of questionnaire is the most commonly used form for getting information from your participant. There are many to choose from, the ASCM, ACE, Canadian Air Force, etc. The most important thing to remember is whichever form you use, it must ask specific questions concerning older people's conditions. Example, high blood pressure and the medications pertaining to that condition. Many people will neglect to include important information unless it is specifically requested, and believe me, they do. Screening again. The activity level check. You advise a checkup. You get an informed consent. You do a fitness assessment if you feel that's necessary, but you make an assessment of their exercise ability. I say, you inform them, they consent. All you as professionals can do is advise something and advise a checkup. Be aware that even a signed waiver of liability will not protect you from a lawsuit if you act in a negligent manner. The key word here is negligent. So if you take the time to interview any new participants concerning their past and present activity levels, keep yourself up to date with their health status, there shouldn't be anything to worry about. Right, fitness assessment again. Conduct a fitness check to plan, implement and evaluate an exercise program that meets the unique needs of participants. It is important to find out the fitness level or the exercise ability of the participants in order to plan your program. Now this can be done by using recognised fitness tests, but there is a difficulty in choosing any test to assess functional ability in older adults because of their wide-ranging physical differences. For instance, take a tricep skin fold test. Most older adults will have lost muscle tone in that particular area, hence that awful term, bingo wings. Now this happened in a particular case of a friend of mine who was ill and had lost a lot of muscle tone and weight, and was told that she was clinically obese because the calipers had picked up the floppy skin under her arms. So be aware that the fitness tests that you would get in your health service are not in your gym and health club, not specific to older people. Now, fitness tests should include tests that incorporate all the components of health-related fitness, and they should be functional fitness tests. That's the key to any test performed. And as mentioned before, previous knowledge is assumed with this course, and building on this knowledge is essential to ensure safe and effective exercise prescription for an older person. Whatever tests you do, they should equate with the needs and ability of that person. We'll look at some of these tests that should be or could be incorporated in your pre-session checks, but above all, they must be appropriate. Now, the example of a few fitness tests that would be appropriate for assessment for functional ability for the older adult. The timed up and go one, that's very good. A self-paced walking test, grip strength, a 2-minute walk, or a unipedal stance, that's standing on one foot. There are many tests that you could perform to get the information you need. But, and it is a big but, be very careful of doing just any old test that happens to be on the sheet. As I said before, of the fitness test that might be at the centre. More examples of tests. There's a functional balance test called the Berg Balance Scale. That is good. There's a soda pop test. I think that's becoming very popular with young people now anyway. It's a coordination test. A triceps stretch, that's a back scratch. An arm curl could give you upper body strength. And a chair sit and reach could give you lower body flexibility. The list goes on, and it will not be appropriate to do all of these tests at the same time, unless of course you're involved in research, in which case you do more thorough selecting and testing anyway. For the purposes of implementing a program with any hope of success, it is imperative that some of these tests are carried out prior to commencing the program. So, fitness tests or assessments should include credible, evidence-based guidelines, appropriate goals, referral to appropriate medical professionals if needed, realistic timeframes, and evaluation. I call that CARE, C-A-R, actually R-E. Any test that you as a fitness professional conduct should be based on credible and approved testing protocols. Example, the PAR-Q revised, the ACSM Health Fitness Facility Pre-Participation Screening Questionnaire, and then implement goals and a proper time frame for achievement of these goals. Whether it is to lose fat, tone up, or just be fit for a particular occasion, it is important to be realistic. Again, this ensures success and adherence to the program. On receipt of these results of these tests, you should be able to refer the person to the appropriate medical practitioner if necessary. Always evaluate either midway in the program, but most definitely at the end. Here comes another task. I want you to list 5 ways in which fitness assessment can benefit program design for older adults. The answer. 1. It identifies specific weaknesses. 2. It identifies and or predicts people at risk for mobility problems and falls. 3. It enables safe and effective exercise prescription. 4. It determines other types of services or referrals that may be necessary. 5. It provides meaningful feedback to participants, and it motivates, number 6, it motivates participants to set personal goals. So how did you do? Did you get at least 5 ways? Let's go through them. Specific weaknesses, that's number 1. How will you know unless you ask the questions? Remember what I said at the start of this session, that often people will neglect to include important information unless it is specifically requested. The same thing again, number 2. You need to know to be able to make any impact on reducing the risk of disability and or falling. Mobility problems leading to disability are preventable most of the time. Number 3, a lot of age-related chronic diseases are treatable through early detection and targeted interventions. Number 4, again, knowledge is key to referral. It may be a physiotherapist or a GP, but you need to be in a position to make that call. Number 5 and 6, always try to involve the participants themselves. After all, they've most likely been around for a lot longer than you and should have a part to play in their own lifestyle choices. The FIT principle. Applying the FIT principle is a recommended and recognised protocol, and it should be, of course, altered to suit individual needs. But don't alter all of these at the same time, as this may be too much overload and is not necessary. Also, there are different needs and diseases, and they require different protocols. It would take forever to discuss every age-related condition, so it is the duty of care of every instructor or fitness professional to be informed of current exercise guidelines and be aware of the things change scenario. Let's look at the rules in general next with progression added. Before I do that, I'm going to read you out the training recommendations of FIT principles for older adults. Frequency, that could be how often an activity is performed. Intensity, how challenging it is. Time, how much time is spent at the activity. And type, what activity is performed. Okay, for cardiovascular fitness, frequency, 3 days a week on alternative days. Intensity, 50 to 60% of its maximal heart rate, and increase that to 75 gradually. The time, 5 to 15 minutes, increasing to 20 to 30 minutes of sustained aerobic activity. Type of that would be walking, swimming, dancing, step. We know this aerobic really. Progression, moving in some way every day will maintain functional fitness. Let's look at the component muscular strength. Frequency, 2 or 3 days a week. Intensity, at 8 to 12 reps, I think, up to about 3 sets. Time, not time dependent. Type, against some form of resistance, weights, resistance bands, machines, something, their own body maybe. Progression, increase in small increments when 12 reps in the first set are reached. As I said, this is just a general overview of the protocols. You may need to increase or decrease these suggestions as you see fit as the need arises. Let's look at muscular endurance. Again, 3 to 5 days a week. Intensity, a moving body weight or low to moderate resistances. Time, specific to smaller muscle mass, may be continuous or accumulated. Type, repetitious or sustained movements, and progression is to increase the duration gradually. And again, as I said, they're just suggestions and examples of what you could do. So mobility and flexibility should be done every day. Intensity performed at the end of the range of motion. Time specific to each joint and may be continuous or accumulated. Type, mobilizing all joints and stretching muscles. Progression, regular performance of exercises should show gradual improvement, and the important thing to remember when you are prescribing exercise is to include all the components as much as possible. So, balance and coordination then. Frequency, every day. Intensity, not applicable. Time, few minutes every day. Type, random movement, varieties of arm and leg combinations. Tai Chi, any exercise which involve weight transference. And progression would be that one leg standing, maybe using equipment unaided. Balance and coordination are two very important factors in maintaining functional fitness and reducing the risk of falling. And also practicing these exercises will increase your participants' confidence in movement and increase their self-esteem. As with practice, these activities become progressively easier to perform, and they can also be a lot of fun. Right, I'm just talk a little bit about contraindications. There are a number of conditions where the potential risks of participating in physical activity and exercise for older adults may outweigh the benefits. This would be a time when you would consult with and or refer to a medical person. Generally, this would occur if there was a significant change in a person's health since the initial screening. So, for contraindications, when considering the safe execution of body movements, keep in mind the following issues. Alignment and stability. That could be postural changes. Joint movement and joint loading. That could be joint restriction. The human body is a wonderful machine capable of wide variety of movements, but if the movements are done incorrectly or inappropriately, injury may occur. Body alignment, we're talking about standing or sitting and moving changes with age, and this can lead to curvature of the spine as in osteoporosis. Muscle weakness can magnify alignment changes too, resulting in a stooped posture, stiff knees and hips. That's the stereotypical image that you see of an older person. If a person has been inactive or immobilized for a period of time, connective tissue might be so tight that the joint movement is restricted. You often hear the term frozen shoulder. Just to say that excessive or repetitive joint loading can damage articular cartilage. So even the floor surface and the wrong footwear can have an effect on an older person's joint. Here comes another question. What precautions must a fitness professional take to ensure a safe and effective exercise session for older adults? Now let's see if you've come up with some or all of the answers. The fitness professional must acquaint themselves with the health status of the individual, as screening, seek guidelines on movements which may need amending, identify recommended adaptations and modifications for specific medical conditions, identify what medications are taken and how they may affect ability to perform physical activity, and know when to refer to a medical professional. The last question I asked was about the benefits of screening. This question is about the delivery of the programme. In the last session we discussed the implications that some age-related diseases have on an older person's ability to perform exercise. Your duty of care as a professional is to be acquainted with and up to date on all the contraindications to exercise, and again, be aware that things change.